Hey guys, Freedom for Kaz here. How you doing today? I certainly hope you're doing well. I am a little bit disturbed by the financial and economic parameters that our U.S. government and the news sources, mainly the mainstream media, keeps putting out as they continue to lie about how great the economy is right now. I've been paying attention to the facts and figures as to why the economy is about to crash, and really in the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks, there's been a lot of information about where the economy is truly headed. It really doesn't have a whole lot to do with President Trump or the new administration being here, because a lot of this has been on the Obama administration, and also the fact that everything has been a plan and the writing has been on the wall for many, many years, including the countless printing press production of money from the U.S. federal government in printing out cash like there's no tomorrow, because there may not be no tomorrow pretty soon. So I've been paying attention for years, but in the last 2-3 months there's been a lot of information about where the economy is headed, and the picture that's being painted that it's way worse than the 2007-2008 crash. And I have an outline here obviously on my computer that I'm following, and I'm going to be referring to the information, but I'm about to give you the information I'm about to give you tells a different story than the everything is fine and the economy is growing BS story. If you believe that our nation's unemployment is actually 4.4%, as stated by the Wall Street Journal, that's kind of crazy. And they've also stated that the underemployment is only at 8.8%. And if you believe that, you are one of the biggest sheep that is alive today, if you actually believe that the unemployment numbers are really that low. The truth of the matter is that retail stores are currently closing at an amazing rate right now. But some of you say that this isn't a problem because online sales are increasing. Well, I'm here to tell you that idea is wrong. That it's even worse than the sheeple believe it to be. Because a lot of you believe that even though stores are closing, there's no real threat or damage to that because online sales are increasing. And I'm going to explain to you at the end of the video why that is so, the mentality of that is so wrong. So first off, the rapid rate of store closings is amazing. It's destroying the United States faster than anyone could possibly imagine. And it's so easy to see for those who are awake. It's so easy to see. But I'm going to talk about that later, because a lot of Americans, like I said, they just don't get it. Okay, U.S. retailing in brick-and-mortar stores has gotten so bad. Store closings are expected to double than that of the economic crash in 2007 and 2008. Combined store retail closings for those years. So the news coming out now is that for those 2 years, you can combine those 2 years, and this year's store closing rate is going to exceed those 2 years, 2007, 2008. Those 2 years combined, there was about 9,000 retail stores that closed. The current expectation for 2017, and this is the early number because these numbers were included in the first 1/3 of 2017. So from January to April, these were the projected numbers, and it continues to get worse. But the projected numbers were that 8,000 stores, brick-and-mortar stores, were going to close in 2017, compared to 2007 and 2008, where 9,000 stores closed. These closings have been announced so far have been almost 3,000 actual closings this year, including hundreds of locations by national chains such as Payless Shoe Stores, Radio Shack, and there is twice as many store closings announced during the same period last year as according to credit companies who track store closings. Okay? There are twice as many announcements than last year, which is crazy. Based on the pace so far, these credit companies and brokerage companies estimate retailers will close very close to, if not more, than 9,000 brick-and-mortar locations this year, which would easily eclipse the number of 2007 and 2008 as it's approaching. It's going to get really close, and they think it's going to pass that. At least 10 retailers and apparel sellers like limited stores, electronic chains, H.H. Gregg Incorporated, and sporting good chains like Gander Mountain have filed for bankruptcy protection so far this year. Strip malls and malls are being hit the hardest. There are strip malls here in Michigan that are offering 6 months of free rent just so they can fill the vacancies. I have a question for you. How many of you remember that back in the 1980s and the 1990s that strip malls and malls themselves had a waiting list for retailers to get in those strip malls? Had a waiting list for retailers to get in the supersized malls. I certainly remember that. I certainly do remember that. And it is absolutely crazy to think that these strip malls and malls have vacancies day in and day out, month in and month out. And a lot of the strip malls have had vacancies for over a year. And here in Michigan, it's gotten so bad that they are offering 6 months of free rent just so you can get your business in there. Retailers are saying that they are closing their stores at a record pace this year. They are feeling the fallout from decades of overbuilding, too many malls, too many strip malls, and now the rise of online shopping. Retail stores and the like are closing quickly. Sears are closing stores along with Payless, and technology stores like Radio Shack are also closing their doors. The seeds of the industry date back nearly 3 decades that have created what is now called the financial bubble for the retail industry. However, thousands of new doors have opened, but along with that, companies who own the strip malls are in a position to either, do I lower the rent to get somebody in there, or do I increase the rent trying to cut my losses? That's what's interesting. This has created a bubble, much like the housing bubble that burst. The retail bubble, the retail bubble was unforeseen just a decade ago. But now the retail bubble is a realization of what's to come. And the crash is very, very near in the future. How many stores are remaining open? That is a great question. Radio Shack is closing in this year, 2017. Radio Shack is closing 550 stores. Payless Shoe Stores is closing 400 stores. Rue 21 closing 400 stores. The Limited closing all of their remaining stores, which is 250. BB is closing all of their remaining stores, which is 180. Wet Seal is closing all of their stores, which is 170 remaining. Crocs is closing 160 stores. JCPenney is closing 138 stores. American Apparel is closing all of their stores, which is 110 stores. Kmart is closing 109 stores. H.H. Gregg is closing 88 stores. Sears is closing 41 stores. And so for you people who are trying to understand what's going on here, is that how can all of these stores be closing and the unemployment number also dropping at the same time? Now, my point on what this is creating is really easy to see. When you are losing employees, you are losing stores along with that. So the tax base, you're losing tax from employees to either local, which would mean city, state tax, federal tax. You're losing that tax that comes into the local governments, the state governments, and the federal governments in both employees and businesses. Okay? So even though the online shopping has increased, the tax base income does not increase, it decreases because you have fewer employees working at the warehouse. When you are closing this many stores, there is a void of tax money going into local, state, and federal agencies. And a lot of people, you don't get that. Not to mention the real estate mark of it. Now you have vacant stores where businesses aren't looking to replace new and up-and-coming businesses because the drive just isn't there. But it gets worse. It gets way worse because student loans are a big factor in this. Millions of U.S. parents have taken out loans from the government to help their children pay for college, and now this crushing bill is coming due. Hundreds of thousands have tumbled into delinquency and default. In the process, many people have delayed retirement, putting off healthcare expenses, and lost portions of Social Security checks and tax refunds to their lender and the federal government. Student loans made through parents from an education department program called Parent Plus, which has loans outstanding to more than 3 million Americans right now. The problem is the government asks almost nothing about its borrowers' incomes, their existing debts, their savings, their credit scores, or even the ability to repay back the student loan. Then it gives the loan, and they are nearly impossible to extinguish in bankruptcy if borrowers fall on hard times, because you cannot put student loans on a bankruptcy claim. You can't do that. As of September 2015, which was 2 years ago, and it's gotten worse since then. Since 2015, 330,000 people in the United States, or 11% of the borrowers who have this student loan, have gone at least 1 year without the ability to make a payment for those who are on this so-called Parent Plus loan program, according to the Government Accountability Office. So these parents are paying the loans for their children and are getting the loans in their parents' name and giving the money to their kids so they can go to school. And all of this is coming to call. The most recent Education Department data shows that another 180,000 of these loans have been delinquent since the middle of 2016. This credit is being extended on terms that specify willfully ignoring their ability to repay, says Toby Merrill of Harvard Law School's Legal Services Center. You can't avoid that we're targeting high cost, high dollar amount in loans to people to who we know just cannot afford these loans because they want their kids to go to school. What has this caused? This is just devastating to the United States, and this is why the retail crash is coming, and it's going to be worse than the crash of 2007 and 2008. Let's look at Venezuela. Jean-Pierre Plachard, a year-old boy, has a drawn face of an old man, and is crying that, and his cry is a little bit more than a whimper. That's how weak he is. You can see his ribs through the skin, and this boy, who is 1 year old, only weighs 11 pounds. His mother, Maria, tries to feed him what she can by combing through the trash, scraps of chicken or potato. So she finally took him to the hospital, where she prays that this rice milk concoction will keep her son alive and nourish his body as he continues to decrease in health because of the lack of food. She says, I watched him sleep and he's getting weaker and weaker and losing weight all the time. Maria is 34 years old, and she says, I never thought I would see Venezuela fall to what it is now. Because Venezuela was the Latin's richest producing food export country in that area. Venezuela was a first world nation. And now in just 12 months, in 18 months, it's fallen to this absolutely hobbled situation due to the economy and national privatization of farms, government-controlled pricing, and government-controlled currencies. That's why Venezuela has crashed. That is what America has become and what America is right now. Venezuela has the world's highest inflation, estimated by the International Monetary Fund. It is going to reach 720% inflation this year alone, making it nearly impossible for families to make ends meet. And since 2013, their economy has shrank an amazingly almost 30%. According to local investment banks, and the basing it on imports of food have plunged by 70% because people don't have the money to buy food anymore. Hundreds of people with many children rummage through the garbage on a daily basis, an uncommon sight just 12 to 18 months ago. People in the countryside pick farms clean at night from fields that are growing food. They are picking the pre-developed food because they're trying to eat whatever they can eat. Fruits hanging on the trees, pumpkins, watermelons, everything that you could possibly get their hands on. The farmers' farms are being obliterated by starving people in Venezuela. It's getting that bad. It is absolutely getting that bad. And don't think for a second that that cannot happen here in America. It most certainly can, and it most certainly will. With the economy the way it is, with the brick-and-mortar stores closing, the loss of tax basis income to local, state, and government authorities. This is why you see America going down the road that it's going. This is why you see and why you hear people of the alternative media like myself who are warning you, you need to get ready because it's coming. Those stores who are currently opening cannot replace the rate of what stores are closing. Yes, there are some new businesses opening. There are some new brick and mortar stores opening. But there is a vast number of brick and mortar stores that are closing. And the online sales, yes, they may be increasing, but the online sales do not develop and include what that sale inside the store includes and the amount of revenue that goes to the government, state, and local agencies in the form of a tax basis. And that's where everything's falling apart. People, we've been warning you for years that this day was coming. And granted, they keep printing money. The U.S. government keeps printing money, and they keep putting it off, and they keep putting it off, and they keep putting it off. There's going to be a time when they go to the cabinet, and the cabinet is going to be empty. And that day is coming soon. And I hope you have prepared your family.